All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever looked at an investment fund's portfolio and just felt like you're only seeing the polished public version? The marketing pitch. You're wondering what's really going on under the hood. Well, if that's you, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to break down some seriously powerful new tools from the India portfolio that are designed to give you exactly that kind of clarity. So let's get into it. So here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll tackle the big questions that every investor is asking. Then we'll look at how to see beyond the surface. We'll dive into a case study on strategy, looking at Creator versus its peers. After that, we'll track deal flow and velocity. And finally, we'll talk about the new rules of analysis and what it all means. Okay, so let's talk about the investor's big questions. It's really all about moving beyond that slick marketing pitch. Every single one of us, whether you're an investor, an analyst, or even a founder, is trying to figure out what a fund's actual thesis is. We all get the polished presentation, but the real story? That's buried in the data. The trick is knowing how to find it. And really, it all comes down to this, doesn't it? Is this fund a leader or a follower? Are they out there making bold, truly different bets? Or are they just, well, following the herd? And more importantly, how can you actually tell the difference with any real confidence? That's the exact problem we're diving into today. You see, the old way of analyzing this stuff, it just doesn't cut it anymore. Looking at a flat list of investments and sectors, sure, it gives you some basic information, but it doesn't give you any real insight. The new way, the way we're talking about, is all about adding context. It's about direct comparison, pitting the data against the competition to see what really stands out. So, the big question is, how do we get that deeper context? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. We're going to look at two new lenses for analysis that let us see beyond the surface. These are a couple of new features from the India portfolio that are, frankly, a bit of a game changer. Okay, here they are. First up, you've got portfolio versus peers. This is brilliant. It lets you benchmark a fund's sector focus right against its direct competitors. And second, there's investment timelines. This one tracks the true velocity of new deals, and the keyword here is new. We're talking brand new companies added to the portfolio, not follow-on rounds. It just filters out all the noise. So let's see these in action. All right, time for a case study. We're going to look at Creator versus its peers to really understand a portfolio's DNA. We'll use the private equity fund Creator as our example here. By putting their portfolio under these two new lenses, we can start to see what their strategy is really made of. Okay, so here it is, the main dashboard from the India portfolio. Now, don't worry, I know it looks like a lot of data at first glance, but it's actually pretty simple. Over on the left, you've got Creator's portfolio breakdown, and on the right, that's the combined portfolio of all its peers, so other growth stage private equity funds. We're going to deconstruct this piece by piece. So let's zoom in on Creator's portfolio composition. The first thing that just jumps right out at you is the concentration. I mean, look at this, a whopping 54.5%. Over half of their entire portfolio is in just one sector, financials. That's not just a focus, that is a massive strategic bet. It tells you immediately where their conviction lies. So, is that huge bet on financials a contrarian move? Are they zigging while everyone else is zagging? Well, let's look at the comparison. This table puts Creator's top sectors right next to the top sectors of their peers. And what do you see? Financials is also the #1 sector for the peer group. In fact, if you look at the check marks, 4 of Creator's top sectors are also in their peers' top 10. The data here is, well, it's pretty clear. And that leads us to a pretty solid conclusion. You can safely say that Creator's strategy is broadly in line with its peers. There's really nothing contrarian happening here. And that's the beauty of this kind of analysis, right? You get a clear, data-backed verdict instead of just guessing. It's an insight that used to be incredibly hard to find. Okay, let's shift gears and look at our second lens, velocity. This is all about tracking deal flow and investment cadence. I mean, strategy is one piece of the puzzle, for sure. But how fast is a fund actually putting money to work in brand new companies? This is what we're talking about when we say deal velocity. So take a look at this timeline. It maps out Creator's brand new investments year by year. And you can see a really clear pattern emerge, can't you? They're consistently adding about 1 or 2 new companies to the portfolio each year. Super steady. And look, you see that focus on financials popping up again and again. It just reinforces everything we saw about their core strategy. And this is the really crucial part. The reason this is so powerful is because it filters out all the noise. We're not talking about follow-on rounds into companies they already own. We're not talking about exits.
This gives you a pure, clean signal of portfolio expansion. It's the true pace at which a fund is finding and backing totally new businesses.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. What are the new rules of analysis? What does this actually mean for you? Because at the end of the day, these tools offer a completely new and way more powerful way to do your own homework. It doesn't matter if you're an LP, a founder checking out investors, or even a competing fund.
First off, you get to move way beyond the pitch deck and see exactly where the capital is really flowing. This helps you uncover a fund's true strategy. You can spot those heavy concentrations, or maybe even find a genuinely contrarian bet. Plus, you can measure their real deal velocity, the actual pace of new investments. And on a bigger scale, you can start to spot market trends. See which sectors are getting all the hype, and maybe more importantly, which ones aren't.
Now, look, with any powerful tool, it's always super important to know its limits. So, in the spirit of transparency, let's quickly go over a couple of points to note and some of the limitations here. First, just a reminder on the timeline, it is specifically designed to count only new portfolio companies. So it's not going to show you follow-on rounds or exits because its goal is to measure portfolio growth. And second, this is all built on publicly available data. So, if there's an error in the original source, that might carry over here. It's just something to keep in mind. And ultimately, tools like these are all part of a much bigger mission. It's all about building out India's finest deal-making platform. These are the building blocks for a smarter, more transparent investment world for everyone. So that leaves us with one final question to think about. We've just peeled back the layers on creators' portfolio and seen the story the data tells. But what about the funds you're tracking? Or what about your own portfolio? With the right tools, every portfolio tells a story. So the real question is, what story is your portfolio hiding?